If anybody has a bad case of arachnophobia, I suggest to click off this review. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of my personal favorite creature feature films, Eight-Legged Freaks, starring David Arquette, Carrie Ward, Scarlett Johansson, and Dougie Doug. So ain't nothing to it but to do it. Now, right off the bat, I can understand if a chunk of people out there find this movie to be rather cheesy because of the dodgy CGI and the off putting special effects, but it's always been a personal favorite for me and a personal favorite in my DVD collection. I think this movie has really colorful characters. I am a big fan of David Arquette, and this might be my personal favorite movie from him, besides the Scream franchise. Now, I forgot to mention, I have reviewed this movie before. It's actually one of the earlier reviews when I started the channel, but I always felt like I could have put a little bit more detail into why I really love the movie, and also into the spiders and the creature design. Now, the plot overall is about a toxic waste that spills into a lake and infects a bunch of crickets that are then fed to a spider farm held by a really creepy guy named Joshua. The smart kid Mike pops up at the spider farm with Joshua. They talk back and forth about certain species. I think one of them is a big orb weaver spider. We have a really creepy sequence where one of the tarantulas escapes, climbs on Joshua's back, and then we see all the other spiders start to attack and get let loose, and then eventually overpower and eat Joshua's body. And it is a little bit sad, but still funny at the same time that the parrot gets eaten by the spider as well. Not on screen, but he says, "I see dead people, I see," and then the spider attacks him and cut to black. I did get a little bit of a chuckle out of it, I can't lie. Now, this is where we're introduced to David Arquette's character, Chris McCormick, who returns to his town, Prosperity, Arizona, after so many years, and he immediately gets into it with the mayor, Wade, played by Leon Rippey. And there's a lot of turmoil right off the bat because Wade is trying to sell the mines that are ultimately owned by Chris's late father. We have another comedic relief character, if you will, with Chris's grandmother, who gives me some pretty big chuckles out of the film, and she's constantly smoking. And she's saying, "Oh, cigarettes will kill you," but she's still smoking like a chimney. But there's a rather intense sequence later on as well involving the grandmother where we have two giant spiders, and spoilers, we do think that she bites the dust here in this sequence, but they have her suspended as they wrap her around in some web, and it's pretty sad. The dog does get it too eventually. I remember this scene was pretty creepy to me as a kid because there's a shot with the dog looking into this huge hole in the wall in the basement where these giant spiders are pretty much habiting at. And the dog's barking, and then we see it's a pretty effective jump scare in my opinion, where there's one side of the giant spider that pops out and immediately snatches the dog and grabs him back in real quick in a swift motion. We do have Scarlett Johansson in a rather earlier role. It's not her very first role. I think that's Home Alone 3, but here she's a little bit older, and I do like her character because I don't like her boyfriend because I thought he was rather creepy, how he kept just pushing up on her in the monster truck. And then she eventually defends herself. She gets a taser and tases his balls. He's wailing and fucking squirming on the ground. And then I do like this sequence that does follow right after where these giant spiders start popping up one by one. Scarlett Johansson's boyfriend, I'm forgetting the guy's character's name, but he's a biker. He has his biker friends who are all douchebags, and they're all getting picked off one by one. And it's really goofy. I can understand if people are rolling their eyes in this scene, but I have a bunch of fun with it because it's so over the top, and I feel that the movie knows that. Okay, the guy's name is Brett, the boyfriend. So Brett, there's a really ridiculous shot with him where he kicks a jumping flying spider mid-air while he's riding a motorcycle, and it's really stupid. I don't see that every day in a film, especially nowadays, and it's just a joy to see. It's a big bowl of cheese for sure. Now, I can't forget Dougie Doug, who might be my favorite character. He plays a guy named Harlan, who's the radio broadcaster around town, and he's a conspiracy theorist and believes heavily in aliens. In fact, when the spiders start popping up, he's still believing that they're aliens and extraterrestrials. And he said, "Oh, you'll never get that anal probe near me." He's a ridiculous character, but I have a bunch of fun with his screen time as well. Now, moving on to what I believe is one of the bigger distractions of the movie, and it's what puts people off in the first place. I will admit the CGI is not the best on the spiders. In fact, it looks really fake and green screenery, or just a little bit sloppy at times. I have to 100% admit that, even if I love the film wholeheartedly. But I still think the spiders are rather menacing at some parts, especially one scene comes to mind in the barbershop scene where you have the two old gentlemen, and the old guys, one of them is sitting on the couch watching TV, and we see this giant spider start popping up behind him right before he pounces on him and ultimately kills him. And that's one of my favorite scenes as well, that definitely leans more on the horror side, because this is a very funny film. It's a comedy, but there are a couple sequences here and there that go into that horror territory. I do think the movie starts to amp up quite a bit when we reach from the middle to the end, where all the residents start to head toward the mall and barricade themselves in, and the spiders eventually break in, and there's a big showdown happening. Everybody's getting picked off one by one, and they eventually reach into the mines where Chris McCormick rescues the grandmother, puts her on the back of his motorcycle. He lights off one of the matches because there's a bunch of like gas fumes, and it is a pretty ridiculous finale when I think about it, of how they didn't burn up to a crisp, Chris and his grandmother. But I can overlook it because the movie knows the movie's trying to have a fun time also. Another random funny thing that I noticed with every viewing is the voice work on the spiders is really cartoonish. It reminds me of Scooby-Doo territory, when some of the spiders are getting dragged off the back of cars, or they're getting shot with shotguns. Some of them are going like wah, 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 yeah, wah, 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 and it's definitely goofy, but it gives me again a Scooby-Doo kind of vibe, and I don't mind it at all. But wrapping it up, I've always loved Eight-Legged Freaks. I think David Arquette does a great job as Chris McCormick. He plays a very likable character. He has a bit of a rough past, or a rough patch on his shoulder, but he's trying to do better, and I really enjoy characters like that. Kerry Ward does a solid job as the sheriff, Sam Parker. I do like David Arquette and Kerry Ward, their chemistry together in the film. They work with each other very well. I like Scott Terra as the smart aleck kid, Mike. Like Dougie Doug as Harlan, the biggest comedic relief character. And another one of my favorites is the Deputy Pete, played by Rick Overton. Solid supporting cast, and I even enjoy the musical score, especially when we get toward the finale. The creature design on the spiders, I felt like there could have been a bit more time put around it, but I still find them to be rather menacing when they pop up in the film. I'm going to give Eight-Legged Freaks a personal 8.5 out of 10. I would say I'm like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 on the scale of being scared of spiders. I don't have a hardcore case of arachnophobia, but I don't really like them. In fact, there's only 2 spider movies that I really enjoy and love. That's Eight-Legged Freaks and Arachnophobia with Jeff Daniels and John Goodman. Those 2 movies I can watch any day. I think they're fantastic. Arachnophobia, I will say, is the better film technically, but I might just have a tad bit more fun with Eight-Legged Freaks, personally. And that's it, y'all. It's your boy Fro. What did you think about Eight-Legged Freaks? Did you like it? Do you hate it? Not your cup of tea? Do you rock with it like I do? Comment below. Let me know your thoughts. In the meantime, between time, I'm on to the next review. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the like and subscription. Comments help too to get the videos out in the algorithm. And I appreciate you. Thank you guys. Fro, Eight-Legged Freaks.